What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Without a Roadmap. This is the show for product managers who don't have all the answers. We plan to tell you the stories of product folks who get the job done every day, but are still figuring it out. My name is Yonas.
And my name is Cameron. Yonas and I are both product people here at Parlor, which is a startup located in downtown Boston. And today we didn't want to talk about anything product related. We kind of wanted to talk about everything that's going on in the world right now, because there's a lot of things going on in the world, not just in the US, but outside the world, which is affecting everybody in different ways. So we thought it'd be a good way to kind of take a step back from all the product, customer feedback, success stuff we talk through mostly on the show, and kind of just talk about how we're handling all those conversations here at Parlor and with our other friends in our community.
Yeah. Like, I feel like it's appropriate to take a step back, and it ties really well into kind of our day-to-day work, where sometimes it feels like you're so focused on the tasks at hand that it gets difficult to kind of like allow yourself to process that we're in a really like interesting time in the world, like everywhere. Got coronavirus impacting families left and right, a lot of financial insecurity, kind of changes to the work environment, moving remote. We just like talked about working remotely as if that was like the only change happening around us. But there's still, there's so much that comes with that. Kind of everybody kind of processes these things differently, and obviously more recently, what's happened and kind of the resurgence of protests against police brutality with the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and so just all these things happening, and can have a profound impact in any individual. And I think as employees, it's important that we communicate that with our coworkers. But I think it's just something that can kind of easily get glossed over, in my experience, in my working experience. But that's when we're all focused on our output, as employees, especially at startups. Every hour of the day is so valuable, and I think sometimes, I guess we could just speak in our experience, that it can get kind of glossed over in that sense, because you're focused on making sure that the rest of your small teams got paychecks and can stay in business, and but I think it does have a profound impact on the quality of work that you can be doing, and that's why I feel like it's a worthy topic of discussion, not only for the emotional aspect of it, but also for kind of how it can affect your business and your employees.
Yeah, for sure. Because with everything going on, all the craziness, like it's obviously a distraction, because if you go on your phone, turn on the TV, you're going to see the latest and whatever is being reported, whether that's the police brutality stuff or the latest numbers for coronavirus, or even things that are happening like internationally. Like you're just constantly getting reminded of those things. And so even though you're trying to get locked in and focused when you're doing your work, that's obviously sitting in the back of your mind, because you also get texts from your friends, you get Snapchat messages, Instagram stuff. So like you're just constantly in this mode of reacting to everything that's going on. And it's just jarring, because when you're trying to deliver on the things that you're responsible for, you're trying to stay focused on that. It's not the best to try to ignore what's going on in the world. It's probably better to kind of talk it out, get your feelings out there, just so you can actually feel something and be human. Like it's not good to go into that robot mode where you lock in and just remove all emotions so you can deliver what you're responsible for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found myself having to put my phone notifications on do not disturb during the day, because you're just in the middle of like grinding out some user some stories, and you get a New York Times article pushed notification telling you that the death toll is at 100,000.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, how the hell do I like?
The worst was with the protests. So I live in LA County, back in Southern California. And because of the protests, they were starting to put curfews on everything. So I'm working, I'm on calls, and I just get just these blasting notifications, curfew at 5 p.m. And I'm looking at it, it's 4 p.m. here. I plan to go on a run at 5 after I finish. And so now I can't. And like everything's kind of just like what's going on? Like why is there a curfew out of nowhere at 5 p.m.?
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, for those who just listen in and can't see us, Cam and I are both men of color, both black men. And, so there's obviously like a large like emotional impact that it has to see everything going on, you know, aside from the kind of protests and the things that followed, but kind of, just reckoning on the daily with, obviously microaggressions and things of that nature, but also seeing the way that black people are treated, police brutality. These aren't things that are new to us, and have an impact on how we navigate daily life. But when it's at the forefront, given everybody being at home and there's fewer distractions and just how heightened everything is, it really does, like, it becomes difficult to kind of tune out. Not that that's something that I look to do actively, but when you're busy with work and like responsible for a lot of things, it can be a distraction.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I said it when we talked about it internally as a larger company that even though we're both the only black employees at Parlor, we didn't even like slack each other about like what's going on really. Like kind of because we were
Right.
both so busy and just kind of trying to get away from the distraction of everything going on that we didn't even check in with each other, which is I think it says a lot about how much is going on in the world right now.
Hmm. Yeah. And I don't know, like you mentioning not slacking each other. I honestly, I kind of like when I'm pretty quiet on social media. I'm also, just historically a terrible texter and just bad at like as good as, they say PM's got to be great at communicating. And I feel like I do a good job on the job, but everywhere else it's, a struggle for me. But it's just, that's something that I've been like especially bad at more recently. And so I apologize that I didn't check in on you, man. I know that.
Nah, like I meant to like twice, or like more than twice, but like on Monday, Tuesday, like after like everything really popped off, I meant to, and then every time I did, something happened. I was like, and I just didn't do it. And
Mhm.
then, and then I was going to Thursday, but then Keith already sent the company Slack like, "Yo, we're meeting tomorrow." So I was like,
Mhm.
ah, it's too late now. There's no point.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of so to that about the company meeting. So I feel like obviously it's hard to have that conversation during the day because it's not it is a larger conversation. I guess like a check-in is something that I wish I did do. Just kind of be like, hey man, like I hope you're doing well. Hope this isn't impacting you too much. And but at the end of the day, I think there is a responsibility on the company's behalf to at least make acknowledgement of these things that are clearly having an impact on globally, or on everybody that's on the team, even if it doesn't impact people on a team. I think it's worth creating a forum or for discussion on these things, because otherwise I think we can just get into the habit of kind of keeping things moving along and not allowing ourselves to process it. And also as like more junior employees on the team, it's a little bit harder to voice your emotions or concerns with how a team is responding to things. um yeah, so that kind of segues into like me reaching out to Keith directly, because I felt like I had expected that the company acknowledging that there are two black men on the team, and could very well have been impacted by everything happening in the world. Meanwhile, we're grinding away. Parlor is doing great things on the product side, super exciting. Everybody's working as hard as we've ever worked, but like not being able to take a step back and think about how things are happening in the world are impacting us. And I think that goes to like everything happening in terms of police brutality, but also coronavirus, and like reckoning with the fact that we do have an emotional limit, and it can have an impact on the work. Maybe we were working too damn well and they were like, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's doing great.
Yeah.
No, but definitely, like I feel like I kind of understand like the hesitation sometimes, even like as far as just checking in, because it can be like a little like it's scary to check in on something that's kind of a sensitive topic for most, because I mean it came out in when we talked about it as a company that people just didn't know like what to say. They didn't have words of how to kind of communicate like what they were feeling, and even though they understood that they wouldn't be able to understand the type of things that us two were feeling in particular to the police brutality, that they just didn't know how to like approach the conversation and to start it with us, which you would hope to like not have that kind of hesitation as you build a culture of a company, because you just should feel that, hey, we're all working on the same team. We're kind of building this like family type of atmosphere that no matter what you say, like we're gonna know that you're coming with the best intentions. You're not coming with trying to throw, what is the analogy where you throw make the fire bigger. Like you're just coming with your best intentions. We all know that you're trying to see that we're okay. But so I wish we probably I wish we had a better culture, which we probably can improve on, is handling these tricky conversations where some don't feel as comfortable approaching it just because of the nature of the conversation. But you would hope that the culture you build um, doesn't like kind of eliminates that hesitation.
Right, where it just feels natural,
Yeah.
like you're checking in on each other.
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
the context of the conversation, also additional context. I have like a long history with the management team at Parlor. I worked with all of them at our last company, Firecracker. Um, so it was easier for me to do this. But what? So as I said, I was a little upset with the lack of kind of acknowledgement of everything happening. Both coronavirus and kind of the fallout of the George Floyd murder. And so I basically reached out to Keith and let him know that. I was like, hey, this has been impacting me prior to the death of George Floyd, like coronavirus, my brother moving back home, like just a lot of things, transitioning to remote work, and just like getting right to it, and not really taking any time off. Like there's a lot of emotions that come with that. And I felt like there was no acknowledgement of that on behalf of the management team. And the reason why I think that's important is because, especially for an earlier stage company where you only have a handful of employees, it's like I feel like you need some outlet, or at least to understand. Like you want to know that they understand that like everything isn't normal right now.
Hmm.
Like if I need to take some time off, I want you to know that it's not because I am I don't like working or want to take a break. It's because like I need a break. And
Right.
that's what I felt like was missing. I didn't want the company to try and lecture us, or for have us lecture them. That was never my intention. And I don't think that's the role of employees at a company per se, at least not at ours. But I just felt like we needed to have a conversation about the company, and them being open to kind of having these conversations, and kind of understanding emotionally how people can be impacted by current events. And
Exactly. Yeah.
curious your thoughts on like how that conversation went, and if you felt like it was like a valuable experience.
Yeah. So for me, the conversation went, I think, pretty well for like the first one. I definitely think we should have more of them, because like this hasn't really stopped. Like there's been 6 murders that have been deemed as suicide of Black men found hanging across the country, like one of them being 40 miles from where I live. So
Oh wow.
this is still going on. Like this hasn't stopped. And obviously coronavirus has also started spiking up again in places that have reopened fully a lot earlier than probably was advised to. So I feel like that was definitely a good first step. And obviously us recognizing Juneteenth as a company holiday was another good step. But I do think these conversations still need to be had. But to go back to the conversation we had, I think it was good, because just to see how everyone was kind of supporting us in their own way, as far as us two being the only Black employees there, and how they all felt terrible about what everything was going on, and how some people said they were frozen just because they everything they were hearing and seeing was just so terrible, but they knew it was awful, but they just it's like so terrible that they didn't know how to react. And so when that stuff happens, I do wish we had a they they would feel comfortable enough to come to me, even though it could be a lot dealing with everybody asking and checking up on you. But I do think that if someone doesn't know how to react, I would rather them reach out to me as opposed to not saying anything. Just to know that they have my support. But because it is good to hear the support of everybody else, because you see all the support of your friends on social media that you follow, but you also start to surface and see all the things that people don't think the way that, like, people don't support the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, you still see that popping up in different places, either on the news and social media, of people that are pretty much fighting against the protests or what they're protesting for, which is kind of crazy to see in 2020. But I do think the conversation went well for the first one, and having everyone voice their opinions and what they were feeling, and just everyone kind of acknowledging that we all dropped the ball collectively, us two included, of not kind of speaking about this sooner and waiting until almost the end of the week to kind of address this as a company.
Yeah, I think there was something interesting that came out of it, and it was like discussing where the company would stand on these sorts of conversations going
Yeah.
forward. And I'd like to hear your thoughts. Like, we didn't actually like, talk too much about this, but Keith mentioned, in the future, obviously right now, everybody on our team is appalled by, what happened to George Floyd, for example. Like, I had no doubt that that was the case even
Yeah,
before we spoke
exactly.
as a team. But as we grow as a team, and like there's more diversity of thought, is I think how he put it, that might not always be the case. Like, you might have like some all lives matter dude on the team who isn't open to like having a, or maybe they're open to having a dialogue, but it doesn't go in the same way that we might have expected it. So it's like, what is the company's role in having these conversations? Or is it just like an individual manager check-in situation that is more appropriate? And I totally understand the point. So I think it's going to vary company to company. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, actually, so I was planning on addressing Keith in our one-on-one that Thursday, because we had one about like us not talking about it as a company, but you preempted that, and I appreciate you for doing that and us having a company-wide discussion earlier. And so later that day, when we had our one-on-one, I asked him about the diversity of thought thing. I was like, I see where you're coming from the diversity of thought, but as a Black person, that can't be the case for all thoughts.
Right. You
Like,
can't be thinking just about anything you want.
exactly. Like, you say you want to create a culture where everyone's comfortable and sharing their views and perspectives and the diversity of thought, but there's also that comes with the case where some thoughts make others feel uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And so, like, people may not say it, but I've experienced it, like at my previous company, where like I'm just random day-to-day things, interactions, you can tell that people didn't expect me to be in that position that I was as a young Black man at a Fortune 6 company. And so I hope that, and he agreed with me that not all diversity of thoughts would be included in the culture he built. So that was a good reassurance that I had to challenge him on, especially
Mm.
given the times.
Yeah. Yeah. We're looking for all types of diversity, but diversity of thought has got to be within
Within a realm.
real. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but so I feel like we're pretty in unique situations where we're able to have these conversations with our superiors pretty comfortably. I'm like, I feel like that might not be the case, especially at bigger companies that are a little bit more bureaucratic. And, if you speaking up to your superior, like, might, negatively affect your career
Mm,
there.
yep.
So that's something I'd love to hear from like anybody listening in, like how you would manage or navigate these sorts of conversations at your company. I thought it would be helpful to share our perspective or what we did here at Parlor, but I realize that that might not be comfortable with everybody. That might not be something that you're able to do. Just given our small team and the family, familial culture that we have.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I've heard from some of my friends who work in larger corporations that how they're handling it. Some of them, for the most part, most of them are doing a really good job about. One email was sent where the CEO basically said, if you need time to just take time, take a moment, take the moment, and just get back to us when you know. Just let your manager know what you're doing, and then no shame given. But this is how we stand, and if you need the moment, take the moment. However long that moment needs to be, we'll be here to support you. So, which I thought uh, was super job well done for a company of that size.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, that's like the kind of message that I was hoping to hear. So that's cool. Like one of my family friends actually, he got something similar, works at a bigger company. It's like a PR media firm.
Same.
um
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like they're on top of their PR game. uh but he basically ended up taking like a week and a half off, and he said it was really good for him. He also had a friend of his pass away, and so it's just the fact that he felt comfortable doing that and that they were in support of that. That's I think that's the most that employers can do. That's just understand that some people are just need time, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there's much more that you can do than just be supportive, like,
Yeah. Exactly.
and make
I
sure that
think.
you're
Yeah.
facilitating a kind of comfortable environment for everyone.
Yeah. One thing that kind of just popped in my mind as we were just chatting about all this is like obviously crazy things go on in the world all the time and they affect different people, but you never know how they affect somebody until you actually ask them. So obviously the police brutality was very forefront for us too, because we're both Black men, and it just affects us because that could be either of us if we're in the wrong situation or at the wrong place or meet the wrong people. But for things like coronavirus and like remote work and like how that's probably affected you differently than it's affected me. And so maybe what you can do is start having this like, I don't know, bi-weekly or whenever something crazy pops up in the world, just send like a quick message to anybody like, hey, it's a recap of what's going on. This is what I saw. If it's affecting you, happy to chat about it, support. If you need to take a moment, like whatever you need to do. I feel like that needs to be said more often for everything that goes on in the world. Because it can
Hmm.
be like a religious war. It can be stuff going on in the other side of the country. It could be stuff happening here in your city if you live in a different city than your coworkers. And you never know how things are affecting somebody. So I think we need um, more frequent communications about stuff like this because the emotional impact is obviously going to impact how you work and perform. And so if you're not emotionally stable and right, it's just going to trickle down to everywhere else in your life, including work.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I ended up working more, and it was almost as like a distraction. And but then it got to a point where like it just was like really hard, and I feel like I just broke down a little bit, and
Yeah,
there was like a couple of days in a row where I felt like I didn't get much work done, just kind of like constantly glued to my phone seeing everything happening, and that was
exactly.
the point at which I was like, I have to speak up, because then if like my performance, I don't want my performance to be tied to me, like there's something, like an external force that's causing this, and but it's kind of sad that it got to that point where I felt like I had to speak up because I didn't want it to reflect poorly on me.
Exactly. And I feel like that's probably felt across a lot of people that sometimes they don't want to just say that stuff is being that they're affected by other things. It could be anything. And I think especially for things that are more forefront in the news and the media, this the US in general, for at
Mm-hmm.
least our companies in the US, I think it's just imperative that we start having these more frequent check-ins and just statements of, hey, we know this is going on in the world. We know it's crazy. I don't know how it affects you, but if you need to take a moment, day or two, week or two, whatever it is, do it and we'll support you in any way you need.
Mhm. Yeah. So the takeaway here is, for like you early career folks listening, don't be afraid to speak up to, management or your superior
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're not feeling well, if you need to take a break. Everybody's going through a lot. I think that it's your company's like priority should be checking in and making sure that you're good, because you being good is really important to their business, and what is taking a couple of days off to your like mental well-being, and being able to kind of get back feeling refreshed. And
Yeah, yeah. I would say it doesn't even have to be like your direct manager. If there's someone that's more senior that you're closer with, you can probably go to them if you're more comfortable going to them if you work at a larger company, just to express to them that you're feeling this, and maybe they can help manage and let your manager know that you're feeling this way, and then you can start the conversation that way if you're more comfortable going to somebody else in your company.
yeah. So anybody who has dealt with this at their company, please let us know. Would love to hear how you navigated this conversation, because I think that everybody could learn a little bit about it. And yeah, just hope everybody is taking care of themselves, and staying healthy, and doing some things to keep them sane during these times. Find a little hobby. That's been real good for me. It sounds like Cam's getting on the gardening train too. I started seeing some cherry tomatoes. They're finally,
Watermelon.
yeah, they're popping up in the garden right now.
There
I'm
we
really
go.
excited. Yeah. Cam's got watermelon. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know we grew watermelons in America. So learn things every day.
Yep.
I got coronavirus to thank for that.
Yep. With all that said, everybody be easy, stay safe, stay sane, and tune in next time.